Hi, and welcome back to Conversations with Sophia, sponsored by the Vihemehe Art House. Today we are going to be talking about cooking with wine in my studio. We'll be right back. Hi, and so we're back. Today, once again, I am delighted to have in my kitchen resident sommelier Kyle Stubbs from Bristol Wines and Spirits. We talked about cooking with wine the last time we were in studio with Mr. Stubbs, and so we thought we would bring it to the kitchen today. So, Kyle, we are approaching the Lenten season, and I know a lot of persons are trying to eat as much meat before Lent or the Lenten season, but we are also very, very concerned and want to follow the principles of the Lenten season by having some fish. So today, what are you fixing for us? And of course, we must talk about the wine that we're going to either cook with and drink some of.
With two things, I love both of those questions and comments. Firstly and foremost, one of my good mentors, Rusty Skates, will always say, I always cook with wine. Sometimes I even put it in the food. So today we'll do both, right?
Yes.
We'll sip on some and we'll put some in the food. But what we're going to prepare, we're going to do some fish. Right, we have some nice salmon fillet here, and we're going to do some steak. We have some sirloin, but we're going to take care of both of those things. The concerns about getting all of this meat in before Lent, right? And if you did not, then of course at the end of that, that means Easter comes with a nice big meal as well,
Absolutely.
right?
And you could eat some meat during the week. It's just on Friday we have to have
most
some fish.
Definitely.
So this is covering both
This
bases.
is covering both. We just want to bring whatever it is before Lent, after Lent, during Lent. We just want to bring some wine into that food experience.
Absolutely,
kind of thing.
absolutely.
So today we have with us 14 Hands from Washington State, Columbia Valley. We have a Chardonnay and we have a Cabernet Sauvignon from them. And I'm just going to speak about how we're going to introduce those wines, the various components to this dish. We're going to keep it very simple. The seasoning that I have here today is salt, pepper, and a little bit of basil. So we don't want to disturb. We want genuine flavors and textures from the steak, from the seafood, and then we're going to bring some veggies there with some asparagus and some Brussels sprouts.
Okay.
What I've done first and foremost to introduce these wines is I had the salmon sitting inside the 14 Hand Chardonnay, and I had the steak sitting inside the Cabernet Sauvignon.
So as a marinade, then you would want to marinate the. Okay, so that's kind of new for me.
So it's the same. You would use your usual rub. You'll add some olive oil, whatever spices that you're using. You can incorporate a little bit of wine. What we want to do, and you can see that the color has changed and the brightness and the salmon came through.
Let's put this on the side so that we can really see what that coloration is.
The salmon, the brightness in the salmon came through. So it's the same thing how we treat all of our seafood. The first thing we do is we can squeeze some kind of citrus on it.
Right.
So that's the acid inside that wine that's breaking down and doing a little bit of pre-work for us kind of thing. And then bringing in a little bit of the other flavors and aromas from that wine.
So tell me something. Bahamians love lime or lemon and so on. Would you put that in addition to the wine, or wine is necessary?
They substituted it. They substituted it.
Okay.
So we're relying on the acid and the citrus component in this wine to represent what that lime or lemon would be for us kind of thing.
Okay.
Same thing with the steak. So we're relying on the tannin structure and the acid inside the wine to kind of start to break down a little bit of the toughness inside this meat.
Right.
Of course, the first thing we also do is we always keep our meat, or we clean them or soak them in vinegar or something of that sort. Same kind of elements inside the wine as well. But again, we want beyond the alcohol, those flavors and aromas to start interacting with what's happening inside that protein.
Of course, and if you don't have the 14 Hands, you can use anything tell me what you can use.
So here's my thought: if it's not good enough to drink, it's not good enough to cook with. We just have to take it that serious when we bring wine to the table.
It's not good enough to drink. It's not good enough to cook with. So we're gonna
cheers.
Wait, there you go. And that's pretty good.
So we're going to do a red wine reduction to go along with the steak. We've had this red, again, the 14 Hands Cabernet here, on a medium.
What's in this pot here.
On a medium heat for a little while, just to bring it down. Again, everything about wine and cooking is getting rid of the alcohol and relying on the tannin structure, the acid, and all of the other flavors that's inside that wine.
Right, okay.
So
That's
we
been on medium heat for about how many minutes?
that's about 10 to 12 minutes or so. So
10
we're
to
just
12
going to
minutes on
add
medium heat.
a little bit of butter here, and if you don't mind for me, Dr. Roll, just a little handful of the purple onions.
Okay, I can do that.
And we're just going to drop that in there, a little bit more
little
for
bit
me.
more.
And we're just going to leave that and let that be.
And notice we're wearing our gloves because, of course, we're in the environment of the pandemic and the COVID, and of course, just basic sanitation, eh?
Absolutely.
So we want to wear these gloves as we are preparing this. So we put the red onions in the wine reduction, and reduction simply means that it's reducing, so you don't want the heat too high underneath the pot for the wine.
So I'm just going to go here, and like I said, we're going to be very gentle and basic with our flavor so we can really enjoy this wine experience. So I'm just going to take these salmon out, and I'm literally just going to lightly dust them with some salt and a little bit of black pepper.
Okay. And some people put all kinds of other seasonings and basils and rosemary, and so it's to taste. Eh?
It is to taste, but right now we really want to enjoy the wine element of it.
Okay.
You know, I gotta really come heavy with some garlic, and you know, but that kind of
takes away.
Then we'll have the wine
And
fighting.
It competes
right.
with the wine.
We want the
Yes.
wine. We want that symmetry kind of thing.
Okay.
So literally just a little bit of salt, a little bit. Again, we're all about the flavors today. So we want this flavor from the salmon. We want the flavors from the wine.
What type of seasoning is that?
This is just black pepper,
that's
very
black pepper.
fine
Okay.
black pepper. Yeah. I'm gonna save a little bit of that dry basil for the steak.
Okay.
I'm gonna rub it. We do a quick little turn.
And beside being a sommelier, Kyle is considered a culinarian. So, you know, you would want him in your kitchen. I think you can. I'm so happy he's here.
Indeed. Alrighty. So we're just gonna let that go for a bit, and I'm going to do the exact same thing with the
It
steak.
seems to be.
Yeah, that's going down. So we're gonna turn this heat down a little bit more,
Take that down.
because we really aren't gonna pay attention to that until the steak is done.
Ooh.
Alrighty.
So notice he added in some butter.
They say butter is salted butter. It
Salted
says
butter.
is the chef's best friend, right? Anytime there's an error inside the kitchen, you could see the chef.
Not margarine.
Yeah,
butter.
absolutely. Chef
Butter.
quickly running to find some butter to correct a sauce or something of that sort.
Yeah. So I would say that's about 2 tablespoons you added to
Yeah.
that. How much wine are we talking about?
That
in
was
terms of
about
ounces?
that was about a cup of wine.
About a cup of wine.
That was about a cup of wine.
About 2 tablespoons of salted butter,
Yeah.
and the red onions. And so we put those in to bring that and just allow it to simmer, not boil, simmer.
Most definitely. So we just here, and what we're doing is we're allowing some of this wine to run off, so we don't have so much
The scent is
moisture.
just delicious in here.
Again, the same thing. Nothing more than salt and black pepper.
Okay. And remember, we already have the wine marinated in there, so the flavors are already going to be inside. So you don't need an overpowering spice
Most definitely.
to compete with the wine. You want to remember that.
And then the sauce that is accompanying this is literally, like you mentioned just now, Dr. Roll, reduced wine.
Reduced wine sauce. Very, very simple. Anyone can fix it. You don't have to be a culinarian. You don't have to be a chef. You don't have to be. You just need to love food.
There you go.
Love wine. And even for non-wine drinkers, you could actually still cook with wine for the flavor of it, because in the cooking process some of the alcohol escapes, so you don't get that
Most definitely.
that you're not going to get drunk.
All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to turn on this stove here. I'm going to monitor the heat. If you don't mind for me, we're just going to quickly drop the Brussels sprouts and the
These ones
asparagus
right here?
right inside
In here?
there,
Okay.
as well as the bell peppers.
Okay, so
And then we're going to keep
Brussels
an eye on that for about 3 minutes.
sprouts. Okay. And again, you don't want to overcook your vegetables, so you want to preheat the water so that it's boiling, and you leave that on for to 4 minutes tops. Otherwise, you get really, really mushy vegetables and they just don't look good when you're serving them.
All right, so what I just did inside our frying pan here, we're gonna look after our salmon first.
Okay.
We're just going to, on a medium heat, put a little bit of butter, coat the pan, and then we're gonna just sear these salmons about 2 to 3 minutes on each side, and that'll be enough for them to rest and cook internally and be at the perfect temperature for us.
Okay.
But what we're gonna do is while we're frying them down in some butter, we're gonna reintroduce some of the Chardonnay.
Okay.
We're gonna cook off that alcohol, and we're gonna get some of that lemon citrus aromas and flavors, some of that wood component that they would have treated this wine with. They use some new American oak, so we get some things that we find on the spice rack, some nutmeg, some cinnamon, a little bit of vanilla. All of those essence coming through this wine, and we just want to introduce them to salmon.
Okay.
And I like to play with Chardonnay. I like to play with Chardonnay and salmon. Same thing with our group and freshly caught tuna. The texture of the fish is a lot more fleshier, so it sits texturally wise well on the side of it, and then we speak about how we treat our seafood, and everything is citrus.
Right.
So that's
So if somebody wants to do like a good old snapper or something like that, is it treated the same way?
yeah. But the snappers, but the only thing I like to differentiate is the snappers on the flakier side of things. So I come down texturally wise on the wine, and it'll be more of a Sauvignon Blanc conversation or an unoaked Chardonnay,
I see.
as opposed to an oak Chardonnay that we'll have this conversation with tuna and salmon.
Very important. Notice what Kyle said. You want an oak Chardonnay. You want an oak wine to cook with, only because of what that brings to the meat or fish that you're preparing. If you're using some other, perhaps you're using a freshwater fish, you want to use a Sauvignon Blanc or something that is non-oak. Is that it?
Yep, that's it. That's what we're talking about. So flaky fish, fresh fish versus our fleshier fish, right? So we, and we speak about it differently. We speak about grouper different than we speak about snapper.
Right.
So we treat them slightly different, right? So we want the heavier white wine on the side of the fleshier fish and the lighter wine. Now, don't get me wrong. Now, if you're a Chardonnay drinker, you can enjoy Chardonnay with a freshly fried snapper.
With anything,
all right. So we're just gonna.
But I mean, my friends in the United States and other
Absolutely.
places who can't get the saltwater fish.
The Sauvignon Blanc brings the herbaceousness and the citrus to the table, just like we would treat our salt fish style.
Right. Okay. Cool. All right.
There we go.
So notice we're just using our hands. That's the reason we have the gloves on.
Most definitely, it makes it a little bit more fun in the kitchen.
Yeah. Okay. That's a
Smaller burner, eh?
You want it a little higher heat?
Yeah.
Under that? Let's change these
that
two
would be
then.
perfect.
Okay.
That would be perfect.
Right.
Then let's really go down. There we go. All right.
All right.
So we're gonna let this pan get a very nice, good heat. Like I say, searing. So we're literally going to seal all of that Chardonnay that this snapper was in, that salt and pepper, literally at medium high, closer to high, literally 2 minutes on each side, seal all of that juices, all of that flavor and everything else. So we retain that. We don't want to lose anything that's participated so far in this process.
Okay. And again, the pan, you don't want terribly high heat underneath the pan. And
just gonna add another piece to make sure we're good with the heat.
Okay.
Yeah.
And keep a watch of your vegetables.
So what I think we could do is we can turn that off, Dr. Rose.
This?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even though we're gonna leave it inside the right, we can turn that
So we
off.
turn that off. Okay. So that's been cooking for about a minute and a half. So we'll just leave it in the water for another 2 minutes, so that the heat from the water itself continues to cook the vegetables.
Alrighty.
Ooh. Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. We're making some noise.
Making some noise. You can hear it. It's stirring. Meantime, I'm just gonna have a little. Just
Absolutely.
for the sake of the wine, I'm gonna have a little wine. That's still good.
Alrighty. So we'll let that go for a moment.
Yeah. Okay. So
We want to bring up a little of the heat because we want a little bit more of this heat for when we introduce the Chardonnay back into this mix.
Okay. And if you notice that is bubbling a little bit, so it's cooking, but plus it's searing on that side.
So I'm gonna wait until I turn them before I add, just to make sure we get our complete fish piece.
Okay. And the butter also adds a nice element of flavor to the salmon as well.
It's awesome that you said that just now, because I completely forgot. What we do inside the New World, Australia, California, South America, with our Chardonnays is we trigger a secondary fermentation on bacteria that converts a harsh acid into a more favorable acid, right? Lactic to malic acid, and we call it malolactic fermentation, but the result is a buttery sensation and a buttery texture. Again, that's
so that
another element of
complements very
Chardonnay.
nicely with the butter that you would add to the fish.
Most definitely. So we literally transferring butter. So just step away from what we're preparing today. Just it's always about the butter poached lobster tail, and right, poach your wine, the lobster tail and some wine.
Right.
And still add the butter.
And
you're just
the butter.
reinforcing some things.
Exactly. So is there any alternative for people who can't have butter and something else? Is there? We just rely then on the wine.
Yeah, we just rely on the wine.
Yeah. Okay.
And then at that point, we're looking at all of the other characteristics in the wine. So we would want, to talk about the acid, right? And when it's the red wine, we want to talk about the tannin.
Right.
Those are the components that make it a food-friendly wine. That's nice. See, when I talk about Sarin, we still kept all of the black pepper and everything that was there.
Yes.
So we, want to keep all of the flavors as we go through.
So that, and if you can see that the heat was not very, very high underneath that pan. And so, because you don't want a crusty surface at the end of the day.
Definitely.
You want it still nice.
So we're just going to introduce a little bit of the Chardonnay.
Ooh.
That's what we expected, a little bit of that. And we're just going to let that cook down for a bit, get rid of the alcohol, bring a little bit more of that buttery sensation and those citrus notes. And then we're just going to rest those salmon, and that'll be us. We're going to save a little bit of this jus, though, because we're going to just come and drizzle that. It's all about the red wine sauce on this dish, but we still want to reintroduce a little bit of this jus to keep the moisture on the salmon when we plate it.
Explain that.
That's just the leftover, from us searing inside here. We introduce this wine, so it's like we're just deglazing the pan. It's the leftover juice inside the pan.
I know that.
Most definitely.
So you don't have to throw away anything.
No,
right?
no. We're keeping everything as we go through this dish.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
And so that's cooking nicely.
That is coming down nicely as well.
Yeah. Remember, when we talk about a red wine reduction, we're bringing it down so it becomes a nice texture when you introduce it over your fish or meat.
Most definitely. Alrighty. So while that is going,
you want this pan on?
No, we're gonna give that another minute or so.
Okay.
Because we're gonna just toss those inside here before we play with a little bit of that white wine.
We're now plating this wonderful. Ooh, it smells so good. So tell us, Kyle, this is a new sauce that you prepared, and what is it?
So we did our partial blanching, and I just briefly tossed it in some butter, salt, and pepper, and we introduced the Chardonnay to that. So that's why we have a little bit more of that. So the Brussels sprouts are a little bit softer than you would want them, but I think we will enjoy them because it had soaked up a little bit of that butter and that wine kind of thing. But they're not overcooked, but we expected a nice bright green popping kind of sensation. But we reintroduced the wine to that.
And a little bit of the green onions.
And absolutely.
Okay.
So the asparagus is forming our base for our plating.
I can hold that.
Absolutely. We came back with the Brussels sprouts and just same thing, blanched bell peppers, and we toss them in that same salt and butter and black pepper. Give us a little bit of heat, and then we're bringing over our salmons that were resting for a moment. So we're just going to put this.
So this is a kind of a surf and turf dish that you can serve, and we're plating that.
So we're going to put that there, and we have our next piece of
And everything doesn't have to go on a glass plate.
No, nope, definitely, definitely not. I'm in love with the wooden board presentations these days.
Yes.
Alrighty, so we're gonna tuck those things in there.
Okay.
So we got a nice, very aromatic rosemary here.
Fresh rosemary from the garden.
Most
A lot of people
definitely.
are doing gardening these days.
We're gonna rest that there.
Right there.
And we also know that we need to have citrus on our surf and turf with our
Yeah.
salmon.
Right there.
And then a little bit of
Microgreens.
microgreens to give us a little bit of classic presentation. We're just going to briefly build that on the top.
Wonderful.
And then what I'm just going to do is just a little spoon here of our red wine reduction.
Remember we were talking about that earlier. The red wine reduction.
I'm just going to drizzle a little on the top of that steak and let it run. Alrighty,
Ooh,
and it should
boy.
be good.
And so we have 2 plated meals right here. This is the finished product. And so obviously we were able to use both the red and the white wine in this dish. And it's you can have them both. It's just so wonderful. So Kyle, is there I'm so ooh, I can't wait to get into this. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, we cooked today with 14 hands and the Chardonnay and
The Cabernet
and the
Sauvignon.
Cabernet Sauvignon, and we prepared both the salmon as well as the steak, and use a variety of well, not a variety, but essentially we used wine for both dishes, the red and the white wine, and it's very, very simple. It can be cooked. Anyone can prepare it, and we invite you to try this out. And perhaps what you can do, I'm inviting you to post your pics on my page with your version of the surf and turf, and we will do the judging and see which one looks good, and we might invite you next time to our kitchen to show us how you would have prepared your surf and turf.
In the spur of the moment, Dr. Roll, I'm going to say we're going to, the winner, we're going to give them a nice bottle of the 14 hand Chardonnay and the Cabernet that we're enjoying, based on those pictures that you get posted.
So 2 pictures, your picture, and you are the winner of a bottle of 14 hands Cabernet Sauvignon as well as the Chardonnay, as well as another special token from the Via Jimenez Art House. Hi, so we've reached the part of the show where we are going to actually taste the wonderful delights that were prepared earlier. So Kyle, why don't you join me as
Most
we
definitely.
taste this wonderful salmon and steak, nice surf and turf. So, you know, I'm a Bahamian, so I like some lemon. So I'm gonna just
A nice little squeeze over
nice
the
little
salmon.
squeeze of the lemon over there.
Fresh salmon.
Even though it was cooked in wine, you can put a little lemon to taste on it afterwards. That is perfect.
Not overcooked. The moisture's still in there.
Yes.
There's some citrus elements. I mean, we did squeeze the lime, but yeah, it was breaking down throughout the process.
Yes. And then the steak. Remember, we used the 14 hands to prepare this. Now this is really good.
It's just like pouring red wine over a piece of steak. You can't go wrong with that. Genuine meat flavor. There's something extra, and I have to point my finger at 14 hands Cab.
That is good.
But then it's not bombarded with spices or anything. It's just salt and pepper. Like you can taste the cleanness in it.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
That is
indeed.
nice.
You can literally taste that red
Red
wine
wine
reduction
reduction on
that you
top.
put over it at the end of the day. And remember, we served it with some Brussels sprouts that are really not overcooked.
Actually, they're pretty good. They are perfect. Spot
The
on.
asparagus.
Get a little bell pepper in here.
Again,
Now what?
ladies and gentlemen, you want to prepare this dish. Send us your version of this dish. What you will not have, of course, are my special wine glasses that I prepared. But of course, you can have your own wine glass with the white wine or red wine of your choice. But we want you to choose, of course, 14 hands if you are minded to do that. And we'll be the judge of your presentation of this meal. Cooking with wine, ladies and gentlemen. Cooking with wine. It's the best. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.